Folks, welcome to So Bad It's Good. This is your pal Ryan, and this is your Tuesday episode. Now, this is a very tiny Real Housewives of Atlanta episode 2 recap. And then also, right after that, we are talking to the director of the stunning new docuseries about Karen Reed. It's ID Discovery, but you can stream it on Max. It is 5 parts, and it really blew me away. I was talking about it a lot with you guys last week. Well, we have the director here with us, Terry Dunmuir, and there's a timestamp if you want to skip right ahead. But I was just, this show's like a mashup. I always talk about that, mashups. I like all kinds of different things. Like you will like all kinds of different things. Like we can like Atlanta and we can also like true crime, but sometimes it kind of screws you up. You know how much I love Severance. I really do. And I got the finale episode in my inbox and I had to stop everything that I was doing. And I've been up since 5:30 this morning and I watched it and I can't say anything about it, but I will say I don't know how I feel, which is what good TV should do. You should really be rattled. And I don't know how I'm going to speak about Real Housewives of Atlanta. I don't know how I'm going to speak about it. Also, today, I'm over on the Betches podcast. Sammy Sage, she's been hosting White Lotus recaps every week, and I'm on there with Sammy and Lex Nico. That's what I was up to do early at 5:30 in the morning. And I had a blast. Go check it out. Go rate it 5 stars. I really enjoyed doing it, even though it was so early. And I'm one of those suckers that I'm not a sucker. I really like this season. I don't know. I think it's actually really good storytelling. It's just very different from the first 2 seasons. What do you guys think? Are you in it? I think sometimes our attention spans are so all over the place that it's hard. Even Sophie and I were talking about on Monday's show that she sometimes thinks she's not smart enough for Severance. And I think it's not even that. I think sometimes we are just not used to slower paced storytelling. But I have been more into that lately. But then you watch Real Housewives of Atlanta this week, and it is so perfectly edited. It's like bam, 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 bam. And it hits you like right. I mean, the tempo of this season of Atlanta is so good. And these ladies are acting like a gelled cast. And what I mean by that, they are already acting like they know each other really well. And some of them already have previous relationships, but they're working together as a team. And by that, I mean, you can already tell there's deep resentment and potential hatred between the ladies. But it's fantastic. But that's like faster paced. Reality television can sometimes be faster paced, where I think, narrative storytelling or fictional storytelling, I'm enjoying slower paced. And then in docuseries, I think this Karen Reed, Body in the Snow, it just told so perfectly. I love that it is spread out over 5 parts, and I'm really excited and curious what you guys think once you watch this. And I really love talking to the director. And she produced 530 episodes of unsolved mysteries. Are you kidding me? And I just thought how fair and balanced she made this docuseries, and I was so impressed by it. Plus, they had they have like the only behind the scenes footage with Karen Reed during this trial, and they didn't pay her to get it. They didn't Karen Reed's team didn't have edit control at all. And so this is purely just this story that they are presenting you, and then we get to do with it what we will. We are like this public jury, and I'm so interested as we go into the retrying of Karen Reed, what's going to happen. But I mean, you will find out from this 5-part. I can't even imagine the pressure that it was like to be this jury. Okay, I wanted to do one quick story before we get to Atlanta. And listen, I know I always say to you guys that everybody one day will have a podcast. And I'm going to have to take that back. I don't want to, but I'm going to have to take it back, because it turns out you will only have a podcast if you have been on some form of reality television. That's it. Or some kind of sitcom that you'll be able to do a rewatch podcast on. I'm sorry, folks. I don't make the rules, but there now is officially too many podcasts. We got an announcement today. 4 new podcasts from Bravo celebrities in the Bravo sphere. And I just don't know if the market can bear this. Are you guys wanting this? So of course I told you last week how Jax and Brittany split up their pod. Brittany got When Reality Hits. Jax Taylor got In the Mind of a Man with Jax Taylor, which the more I say that, the more I fall in love with it, but also the intensity and the silliness of that title, which I don't think it is intended to be silly. We have 4 new ones. We have Please See Below with Bryn Whitfield from Roni, which is wild that she is doing a podcast when her communication with her cast seemed to be really in question at the end of that last season. I mean, really. So that's ballsy to come out with a podcast. So Bryn has a podcast now. We don't know if season 3 of Roni's coming back, but she has a podcast. So if you want to find her, that's where she is. We also have Come Together with Aaron and Abe Leashy. First off, hysterical title, Come Together, LOL. It's COME, but, read between the lines, right? Now, listen, I'm partial to this one because Abe was kind enough to come on this show, and we share a love for jam bands. Yeah, we do. We share a love for jam bands. Deal with it. We love Fish. We love the Dead. That's how it is. And Abe cracks me up. He cracks me up on the show, and I love talking to him. And so I am biased. But that one is coming out through Dear Media. And then Michelle Lally, or I guess her actual name is Michelle Sinai. She has a new podcast called Pursuit of Sassiness. Not happiness, sassiness, you guys. So Michelle Lally, formerly Lally, new podcast. And that's interesting because it's going to coincide with season 2 of The Valley. And then our last one, and 2 of these is from iHeart. So iHeart crushing this reality show genre podcast thing. We have Casual Chaos with Gia Giudice, Teresa and Joe's daughter, who we grew up with. I mean, woke up this morning. Like, come on. Waking up in the morning thinking about so many things. I mean, she has a hit single from when she was a kid. I don't know really what any of these podcasts are. I talk more about this with Dana Regan, the Bravo investigator, later on in the week, where we kind of went into this topic a little bit. But I wanted to share this information with you because it does seem it's overload. And all of these announcements on the same day was like St. Patty's Day, some sort of like announce your podcast if you're on a reality show day. I mean, why did we get that many announcements? It really is confusing. And the thing is, like, I've been doing this 5 years and I'm barely good at it. I mean, anyways, what do you guys think? Who are you listening to first? Who are you listening to last? Will you listen to any of these? And you want to give everything a chance, but I mean, there's just so much good television on. How do we have the time for this many podcasts? Okay. So I wanted to share that with you guys, and I'm sorry, I guess I'm going to lose half my audience now because you will be focused on 4 new podcasts. I'm so sorry to see you go. We will always be here for when you come back from these 4 podcasts, but I just wanted to warn you, 4 new pods hit the market, okay? Now, let's talk about something really fun before we talk about something dark and disturbing, the Karen retrial, Real Housewives of Atlanta. Okay, let's catch up with these characters in case you are new to Atlanta. This is season 16, episode 2. Now, the big return here is Portia Williams. She had a hiatus. She's back. She is getting a divorce for the second time, but the man she is fighting over this season is Dennis. Dennis the Menace, because Dennis is producing Drew Sidora's music career, and Drew is calling Dennis the Menace like a guiding light and an angel. I'm like, wait, what are you, Dennis? Dennis? And listen, folks, I don't know much about the music business. Is Dennis big in the music business? Why, I don't understand why this guy is Drew's shining light. But Portia, even in the midst of a divorce, still has time to be angry that Drew is palling around with Dennis the Menace. And Drew is being real cagey this episode. She's called out on it immediately in the first scene. So we have Drew back, and she is getting a divorce from Ralph, and Ralph now lives in their basement, which I said last week is a perfect place for Ralph to live. Ralph belongs in the basement. I am Team Drew when it comes between Ralph and Drew. Now, we have Shamia, who is Portia Williams, one of her best friends, OG best friends. But she, to me, in the first episode, was kind of the lead of this team, this ragtag team of Atlanteans. She's the center. She calls herself the glue. And I got to tell you, I didn't realize Shamia had this kind of money. Her dude got her a $430,000 Rolls Royce Carillion, or however you pronounce expensive cars. And through this big party, in fact, in this episode, a portion of the party is a foam party. They have people with foam machines throwing it all around the pool. I mean, this is true wealth, you guys. It doesn't take much. True wealth to me, this is really simple things. I'm like, foam machines? Whoa, I don't even care about the Rolls Royce. You had me at foam machines. So she's like kind of the lead. And when you see the picture for the season, she's kind of like close to the middle, if not the middle. It's a weird kind of casting where it doesn't look like they have a middle spot, but I would argue she's the middle. Now, we have a newcomer, and that's Britt Eady. And Britt owns an insurance education agency called Agency Jumpstart. And you know me, man, I'm a sucker for housewives who own insurance companies. Shout out to the OG from the OC, Vicky Gunvalson. But she also launched a shapewear and clothing line because you can't just do insurance, not in this economy. And she's married to a dude, and they're talking about having a child. And we see a scene in this episode where we get to meet Britt's mom. And I got to tell you, it's always so fun to meet a new housewives mom. Just think of the pantheon of housewives mothers that we've seen through the years. And you just wonder, is this lady a star? Are we looking at a star? And I love how she kind of just shuffles in, you know, and then they go sauna together in the basement. They have a basement sauna. Okay. And then we have one of my favorites, Kelly Farrell, and she is the owner of Nana's Chicken and Waffles. She named it after her Nana, and it's a popular Atlanta-based restaurant. And she is another one. In the first episode, we saw her buy like 17 gifts for her daughter's 17th birthday, and they were all very expensive purses. And she is like divorced from her dude for a hot minute, but she has a bunch of kids, and this lady wants to take over the town. She is restaurant hungry. She's opening up a new restaurant. We find out in this episode that it is not going to come in, like they're supposed to open in a month, and they're like, listen, we're not going to be able to get the permits in time. And she's like, get it done. But I like Kelly, and Kelly took no guff last episode. Kelly stepped to Portia immediately. Kelly was already getting in there. And sometimes, you know, with new housewives, you'll see them jump in and you're like, no, not yet. But for some reason with this season of Atlanta, it's like, all's fair in love and war. Like, do whatever you need to do. Smoke them like you got them. Just jump in. And for some reason, it is working. I always love that I don't trust my own instincts. I'm like, this is working, right? Have you watched it? It's really good. And then we also have Angela Oakley. And Angela, it says she's a self-made millionaire and a financial consultant, but she's also married to an NBA legend, Charles Oakley, who played for the Knicks and the Bulls. And I love Charles Oakley so far because you can tell he's kind of uncomfortable with the cameras. And it's a good blend because the antithesis of that is somebody way too comfortable with the cameras. And, you know, we've had so many house husbands or just men in reality TV that are way too comfortable. Like, hey, what's going on? Hey, it's me, PK. What's going on? So it's really, I think, refreshing to see somebody a little awkward around the cameras. And I like it. I'm like, I immediately trust that guy, even though that's probably the wrong move. So that's our cast of characters. This week's episode, we start off at Shamia's birthday party, and we are immediately, it was a to be continued, where we're immediately in this group scene where Portia is kind of confronting Drew about like, yo, what about Dennis the Menace? What about my ex? I used to be with Dennis, and now I'm hearing from people that you are out palling around with him, and Shamia won't take her foot off of Drew's neck and just saying, listen, I heard you were out there booed up with Dennis wearing matching outfits like the prom. And that killed me. And everybody jumped in. Even Cynthia Bailey's there as a friend of this season. And in that talking head, she's like, I do not want anybody booed up with any of my exes. I don't want anybody in prom outfits. And it is so natural, this scene between all the ladies, that it gives me just more reason to be hopeful for this season. Because I'm like, if you are this early in the season and it's this comfortable interacting with each other when it's something kind of tension filled, then that is going to yield great rewards in the long run, right? So we're in the opening scene, and Drew's like, Portia, I told you about this. I invited you to this thing. And she's like, no, you didn't tell me. And then she's like, Drew, the next day, you posted a picture. And we see the picture of Drew Sidora, and it doesn't look like she's wearing a bra. And I think that's the purpose of the outfit. And I think she looks fine. She's like in some, I don't know, these look like elevated sweatpants, and it's like a belly shirt. But you can see the nipple area in the kind of, it's like a see-through little shirt, right? And Portia says, I see this picture of Drew, and I say, she is not looking like herself. She is just like washed, which means like beat, she looks beat. And Portia's like, I was like, let me call Drew. And everybody's like washed. And I find it interesting. We kind of hold these lots in life where we are so easy to pick on. And I think I've been that person a time or two, maybe still that person. But Drew is that person as well, where it's just easy to pick on Drew. Drew can never truly step into her own light because every time she tries to, somebody just knocks her down, or she's depending on the kindness of strangers, and the stranger being Dennis the Menace. Like, do this yourself, Drew. But Drew kind of rolls with Portia saying she looks washed, and Drew's like, no, you are right though. You are right though, because I actually had no makeup on that night. I didn't have no makeup on. And we see the photo, you guys, and it looked like she had extreme makeup. I mean, she doesn't look like one of the members of Kiss, but she definitely looked like she had makeup. She didn't look like she had no makeup. She looked like she had makeup. But it was just this great interaction. And Portia's saying, you brought up Dennis, Drew, and Drew didn't tell me anything. Drew didn't tell me anything about your relationship. And she's like, let me preface this by saying, I do not care, which when somebody prefaces it with I do not care, it means they care. But also in terms of reality television, they care because it's also a storyline. But also, how annoying is it if you decide to come back to reality television, you want to be Queen Bee, and then you have to deal with your fugly ex, Dennis the Menace. No offense, Dennis. I think you actually, you're not... You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to deal with your ex. Like, why can't this be my moment? You got to bring in past people, and Dennis wants to film with Drew? No, thank you. Portia in a talking head is trying to explain everything of like, I literally scrolled. I saw something about him in a studio, and we see all of these quotes from the blog saying Atlanta Street says Drew and Dennis are smashing and Portia is hot and bothered. I'm guessing this is from the Washington Post or something, but I like the headline is Drew and Dennis are smashing and Portia is hot and bothered. But Portia's saying, I saw this and I was like, let me go make something for dinner. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't got nothing. I don't want nothing to do with that. But then they're seeing photos of, it looks like Dennis and Drew holding hands in the club. And Shamia's like, this is why I'm asking you, because I saw these photos. And Drew's like, can I talk? Let me talk. And I think she's just stalling by saying, can I talk a bunch of times until she thinks about what she's going to say. Drew's like, it's very simple. I had reached out to you many times, Portia. And, and Britt's like, that's not something you text, Drew. And Drew's like, no, it wasn't something I was going to text. No, I agree. Let me tell you from the beginning, I opened up for Tamar Braxton. Dennis reached out to my management about me hosting the official after party, and he did a whole professional pitch about working with me on my music. And Portia's like, good. And Drew's like, I told you on the phone. I said, listen, Dennis has been my angel on earth because at a time when everything I'm going through, which we haven't been able to talk, and even all the other ladies are like, that doesn't sound right. This is already sounding weird. And Drew lets us know, and for me, I feel the same. Drew says, because my music has been my therapy. And Portia goes, that's beautiful. But really snarky, goes, that's beautiful. Like, Portia is so good at this. Drew says, I am so excited for you to hear my music. And I did ask Dennis, I said, did you get a chance to talk to Portia? Because I ain't got to catch up with her because I've been busy. He said, I asked Portia for her blessing. And she gave it to me. And Portia goes, you all really need to stop playing. You got to stop lying on my name, right? Drew says, at the end of the day, Dennis has been like a brother to me, since you, Ralph, and I all hung out. So all of them hung out together, and now she is saying brother. But who knows, man? We just saw that White Lotus episode on Sunday where the two brothers were kissing. So who knows what brother means in like Drew Sidora land? But all the ladies are really kind of shocked. You know, Kelly's like, I didn't sleep with him. I just, Portia, and she didn't raise her voice not one time. And I'm like, say something. Did you sleep with him or not? Because Drew kept it like real chill, real casual. We don't really get an answer. And Drew keeps sticking with this. He's just my angel. He begged me to record a song because this song is for me and Portia. So now she is saying that Dennis the Menace wants Drew to record a song because it reminds him of him and Portia. How tangled is this web that we weave? And nobody buys this. And by the way, there's a shot of Kenya Moore, and I swear to God, I was like, oh my God, I forgot Kenya Moore was on this cast. She eventually gets kicked off. But this is how they're editing around her. You don't even realize Kenya is here until like 5 minutes into the show. But Drew also lets Portia know that Dennis cried in the studio. And Drew says, I've stayed out of whatever you guys have, gone through. And Portia's like, oh, good, you cried together. But let me tell you, Portia, this man loves you. And I don't want you to ever think for 1 second that I would ever be dealing with your baby daddy. And Portia's like, okay, are you done? And it's really snarky back and forth. But by the way, folks, this is where you're like, oh, this is a great season. So Portia's like, you know what, whatever with Dennis. I let you come promote my hairline because, Drew, I guess, helped promote Portia's hairline. But then Portia says, let me just tell you this. You are a low-down, dirty individual. And Drew has a zoinks face like, low-down, dirty individual? What? And by the way, if somebody's not making low-down, dirty individual shirts, what are we even doing with our lives? All these ladies are like shook. They're like, whoa, low-down, dirty individual. And the way Portia delivers it, like, bam! And she says, Portia goes, since this phone call that you're talking about, you told me about Dennis and all of that, you've done some low-down shit to me, Drew. Very effing low-down. And I'm here to tell you, you got the wrong one. You're effing with the wrong one, Drew. And Drew's like, what did I do? What did I do? And then there's a magical moment where Portia goes, is a producer here? And the producer's like, rah, rah, rah. And Portia goes, can I break the fourth wall? And then we hear, yes. And one of the ladies goes, break it, break it, break it. Come on, break it. And so that's when we acknowledge, that's our bravo, bravo, effing bravo moment. We've got it set 2 episodes into Atlanta. And so Portia's like, you know that we are all on this show together. We're talking about the show. How exciting is this? Portia says, we have our family. We have our friends. We have our own support systems. You have been trying to go behind my back and do something very dirty by asking Dennis to film with you. And everyone's like, whoa, what? And Drew's like, I never did. And Portia's like, you've been trying to get him to film. He showed me a text message, Drew. And we cut to a talking head with Portia. And Portia's being asked by the producer about Dennis. And Portia's like, no, you know what? It's not even that deep. I got pissed because this bitch was trying to film with my baby daddy on the show. I don't know how many times I got to say that. And then we have another talking head of her in a different dress, Portia, and she's explaining it again. Oh, filming with my child's father. And then another dress going, you're wanting to film with him is complicating my life. So for somebody saying they're not pressed, they are very pressed. She's like, his sneaking around with Dennis, I could care less, after we've seen 4 examples of how much she cares. But she says, listen, my divorce, and the divorce isn't from Dennis. She's like, I'm stressed as shit. It's that simple. But this was magnetic with that fourth wall breaking. So to me, that's the centerpiece scene. And then we get into the show and we have a scene with Angela Oakley. And this is great because Charles Oakley, her husband, is cooking. And this is where you can see he's really uncomfortable. And Angela asks him if he wants some wine. And Charles says, you know what? I don't drink white wine. Men shouldn't drink sweet wine. What did he say? It's something so, I was like dying. He's like cooking up a storm in the kitchen. And he goes, I don't drink white wine. A man shouldn't have sweet wine unless he's maybe overseas or out of the country, which I think is overseas if you're out of the... Anyways, it's the same thing. But I love that that's a rule in Charles Oakley's land of you can't have white sweet wine unless you're out of the country. That is a vacation wine only. I'm a real man. I drink reds. I drink reds. They seem like they have a really nice family. And there's, I don't know, so she's kind of relaying the story about Dennis and Drew and Portia. And then we go to a scene with Portia and Kenya, which is kind of iconic. And they're eating out on the patio at some restaurant. And she's like, listen, Portia, what's going on with Dennis and music? I haven't heard those two things together. What are you talking about? And Portia says, well, he did produce an album for my daughter. And we see the album title and it's all children's drawings and it says All Star Kids with a star and little drawings of kids. And so this is an album he produced for Portia's daughters. And I will say this album goes hard. You want to think of like Drake and Kendrick? No, move over, dude. All Star Kids is where it's at. Dennis knows what he's doing. This kid album is fire. But anyways, Kenya is saying like, listen, Drew said that, she got your blessing to hang out with Dennis. And Portia's like, no, she just like makes up things, writes it in her mind, says whatever she wants. I don't know what she's about to say or do. But I am a person who roots for Drew still, Portia says. The only thing that set me off at that party was that me now finding out you were also trying to film with him without telling me. Come on. She says, Dennis is my co-parent. We have a great relationship. And when it's good, it's good. And when it's Dennis the Menace and Petty P, it is bad. And we see flashbacks of all of their arguments. And I will say Dennis seems to be on the Ozempic. He has dropped a couple LBs because he knew he was like ready. He's like, get me back on Atlanta. I need that camera time, baby. But she says, I don't want him to film anything that's going to compromise the growth that we have had. Now, do we really believe that Portia and Dennis have had growth? Do we really believe that? Or is Portia just pissed that he's going to be filming with Drew? But Kenya says, I just think he's trying to have his cake and eat it too. He's like trying to get back with you probably. He's going to try to get with her. He's just going to be Dennis the Menace. But Portia says Drew should protect me as a friend like I've protected her as a friend. And so it already is setting up this really complicated situation that I'm curious if we're going to see the entirety of the season. So then we put the Dennis the Menace thing aside and we start talking about Kenya's soon-to-be ex-husband, Simon. And she's telling Kenya about like there's this whole thing with his green card happening. And she's like, this was his fourth marriage? And Portia's like, yeah, fourth marriage. Actually, no, fifth. But the fifth one, that was a fake marriage. And right when she said that, I was like, we gotta call TLC. TLC needs to make the Simon dating show. We need to put him on 90 Day Fiancé. But Portia's like, yeah, that was a fake marriage, one of those. But after I filed for divorce, one night I'm laying at my mom's house, my phone beeps. One of the cameras is still on in the living room. He's got women in the house. When I really knew that Simon was my person, she says in a talking head, was when I was writing my book, The Pursuit of Portia. But she said she was like recovering from her trauma and Simon would say, you're safe. You're safe. But Kenya's like, yeah, wait, but don't bring hoes up in my house. And Portia's like, yeah, where our children are. But she says, I felt like I had a man who was honest to me. Is the very thing that slipped away at the end. I mean, you wouldn't have thought that with having 4, maybe 5 previous marriages. You wouldn't think that, right? You would think this guy's on the up and up. But he's acting like a straight crazy donkey, Portia says. A straight crazy donkey, you guys. So we have then the scene with Kelly and her waffle place, and it's not going to be ready in time for like a month from now for the opening, and they're telling her like, listen, we can't do it. And she's like, it shall be done. We are doing it. And then we cut to a scene with Britt and her dude. Is her dude name's Mike? I don't know. It's interesting. But she says, listen, this guy had been after me for a while, but we went to Vegas. I said he wasn't getting none. And then we just had the best time. And I thought, you know what? Is this guy my guy? I think he is. They got married during COVID, you guys. It was right when she launched her insurance company, and they met because Mike was her client at first. That's wild. And now he's popping bottles in their kitchen, and they're talking about having kids. Are we going to wait? Are we going to do it in this house? Are we going to get a new house and then have kids? And he's like, dude, don't worry about it. And she's like, I got to worry about it. I'm a planner, you know? And she's like, you think I can be pregnant and you show no emotions? Because he's acting super chill. He's acting super chill about this whole thing. And then her mom stumbles in and then they go take a hot sauna downstairs. I was like, of course, go take a hot sauna. Yes. And then we have a scene with Shamia. And then we have this really beautiful scene with Shamia and her, the lady who delivered her baby through surrogacy, Shadina. And, these shows really live and die by, they can be really crazy and aggressive. And then they'll have a really beautiful scene that kind of makes you learn a little something. And she lets us know that she went through Dr. Jackie from Married to Medicine. Dr. Jackie has a surrogacy agency, and she went through that. So she found Shadina, and, Shadina offered to be her surrogate for her baby. And then around 32 weeks, Shadina found out she had breast cancer. And part of her felt responsible for this because of all the hormones that they were pumping into Shadina. And the baby had to be delivered like yesterday. And, Shamia is like, this lady put her life on the line for me. But also it's this important message where she says it just, how much Black women suffer with maternal mortality. And we've had a couple of cast members from Married to Medicine on in the past that have talked about the health issues specifically facing Black women. And I think this is something that I had no idea of before Married to Medicine, that it is so important to be brought up. And yes, of course, like Dennis the Menace, you don't want that overshadowing an important message like this. But I thought this was truly this kind of really amazing scene in its own right. We cut to that and we have a scene, we cut from that and we have a scene with Kelly and Britt, the two newbies, and they're just palling around talking. And Britt's like, did you clock Kenya on the first episode was kind of making fun of her ring. And I think this comes into play later because I believe Kenya is sort of aggressively bullying Britt throughout the season, or this is something that leads to Kenya getting asked to be, kicked off the show in a sense. So this is interesting. And Britt's calling it out. Britt's calling it out to Kelly saying, why are you worried about if I got a wedding band or not? Like, come on. And so you can tell that Kenya is potentially threatened by Britt. And Britt's like, I'm literally the sweetest person. Come on. Ugh. So then we have a scene with Shamia, Angela, and Drew where they're working out. They're dropping it with Drew. And we kind of have a similar conversation about Dennis again. And Shamia, Drew calls her, like, if you look up lapdog in the dictionary, you're going to see Shamia's picture, which I don't think that's how dictionaries work. But she's saying that Shamia is Portia's lapdog, which I think was great. She said it in a talking head, didn't say it to her face, but we're still like questioning this relationship with Dennis and Drew. And Drew was like, listen, this guy, it's a business deal. He, he sees something. And I was like, dude, this album better be like Dark Side of the Moon levels. This better be like Sergeant Pepper's. Like, is it worth all of this trauma? So they have this whole scene. And then the final scene is that Portia's with her daughter, Pilar, that she has with Dennis. And they're both at this like kids playland, which I'm like, oh, don't do this. Don't do a scene around all the kids. Like, mommy, who's that? Oh, that's Dennis and Portia from Real Housewives of Atlanta having an awkward conversation during your playtime. And they start off nice, but Dennis is saying, like, listen, no, I told Drew to come talk to you. No, it's not my fault. And what have we learned from Bravo, folks? And we might have learned this from life as well, is that I would be willing to bet that Dennis is lying here. I would be willing, the man is probably lying here. And who knows, but it is wild if they really are knocking boots. And I hope you will excuse me for saying knocking boots. That's probably hard to, see me say that. If they're knocking boots and he's lying about it and Drew's lying about it, this is not going to go well for the rest of the season. But it's really awkward all of a sudden between Dennis and Portia. And Portia like goes into the bathroom or something and she's talking to the camera and she's like, listen, here's the deal. What happens if all of a sudden things get tense with me and Dennis and we're not speaking and now he gets offered these cameras to come and use my own platform against me? I don't need anything else. She's starting to tear up. She says, I'm literally trying. And she's crying. So she feels like, listen, this is my spotlight. I don't need to have one of my exes in here. I don't need to worry about him. I got snipers coming at me from all sides in this divorce from Simon. And Portia says, he doesn't deserve my tears. He doesn't, Portia. She says, I refuse to give him my tears while she's crying. So she's already giving the tears, per se. And we see a 20 minutes later pop up on the screen. And we hear just Mike, we see shots of cars. And Dennis, we hear Dennis say to Portia, this is only a mic conversation, saying, what's the problem? And Portia says, when you show up anywhere on these cameras with somebody else, it's going to be a problem. Another damn housewife. It looks absolutely insane, Dennis. And then Dennis is in the car with her, and Dennis goes, you got a hot mic. And Portia goes, oh, I'm sure you know. Yeah, I'm sure you know. You're a pro now with it, huh? You're a pro now. Every promotion is not a good promotion, Dennis. At the end of the day, guess what? We're hollering about, we're family. You represent us, Dennis. And then Dennis is like, the album was supposed to come out a month ago. We're still talking about the damn album. And they're just fighting. And Portia says, do what you do. And by what you do, it's going to mark how this happens. And she's like, it's going to mark how this looks for your daughter, Dennis. I don't even know why the fuck I'm stopped right here. Get me fucking doing this stupid shit, she says. She's just cursing up a storm. Now, this is on a hot mic. And my one question is, how did production let them drive off with their mic pack still on? Because a mic person has to put the mic on, you go film the scene, and then the mic person takes the mic off because the mics are expensive. Now, Portia's expensive too. Dennis, I'm not so sure. But they knowingly let them get in the car with hot mics on. And Portia was pointing out, Dennis was like, hot mic. And she's like, oh, you're a pro now, huh? You're a big TV star, Dennis. And I just thought it was great. And that was the end of this week's episode of Atlanta. Now, next week, we have Kenya fighting with Drew. We have Shamia telling somebody that they have a 99 nose. I think she's saying it to Angela Oakley, and Angela Oakley says, okay, Flava Flav. And then we have Drew and Portia having another conversation potentially about Dennis. So overall, a very solid episode of Real Housewives of Atlanta. I hope you guys are on board this season. I'm really enjoying it. Okay. Now, this is what I talk about, taking a hard pivot, you guys. We just had a joyous time talking about Atlanta, and now we're going to go a little darker about a show that I think you need to be watching, 5-part docuseries, all about the Karen Reed trial that is airing. Now, listen, you might not have caught up, so watch the show and then come back and listen to this interview. I think this is a really great interview from somebody that has been in this business forever. And I was just really impressed, and I'm really excited to hear what you think about it. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking now about the Karen Reed trial.